Hello, lovely people. Happy Tuesday. I think today's the 28th of November. I think we have audio. I think we have everything connected properly. Hope everyone had a lovely Thanksgiving. I had a very relaxing one. But today we're going to finish, pointing the wrong way, that guy. This is very close. The only stuff I've really done, I did a little bit in between last week's bonus stream and on the holiday. I worked on the cape. The cape is a fur cape. It's a lot of work. There might be a single brush that will do the whole thing, or a bump map of some kind that I could apply to the whole thing and make it look right. But you can see that I did this main section up top, kind of this heavier cloak part of it, that's top part. Then I did this portion of it, and today we're going to work on this portion. I broke it into sections because it's a very complicated shape, and it takes a lot to define it because it's so complicated. So I cut it into sections, and I hope to blend them in a way to make them not quite so obvious. I don't mind if the top part feels heavier, because that was kind of cool. At one point when the bottom of the cape was simple and the top was all fur, it kind of looked cool, but I think I want the whole thing to be more like some sort of animal skin. The only other addition I think was this book, which I can talk about in a little bit. It was created in a different way in a different program, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Telwan, good to see you. I appreciate that. You could have streamed the Thanksgiving. I like Eric. I like that you were encouraging me to stream round the clock. I think that's fantastic. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. Let's keep working on this cape. I am working in Nomad Sculpt, as most folks here know, but if you're just joining me or catching a replay, this is all sculpted on an iPad. I've just noticed that bit has adjusted. I'm just going to drag that down and hopefully that will be okay. That one too. Not sure if something moved along the way, but seems to be connected now. I'm going to save. This is a very big file, mostly that cape. I went through and simplified quite a bit of it, but it's still pretty gigantic. So, what I'm doing is just trying to think about how fur would fall and how I'm going to do that last step. How it might, because it'd be real easy to make this look like someone's wearing a cloak made of hot dogs. But what I'm doing first is I'm creating this kind of simple pattern, which I will then go through with the crease tool. First, I'll smooth the whole thing out once I get the volume where I want. Basically get those rises and falls in a pretty good place. Because the crease tool by itself won't create those kind of screaming eels that I want for the shape of the cape. And there's probably a better way to do this. I never tried to sculpt fur before. So, as with most of my sculpting here on the channel, I don't know what I'm doing. And the cape at the top, this is actually the third one I did. I sculpted it. I was really glad I wasn't streaming that portion of it. Eric, I apologize if that runs counter to your commerce philosophy. But the first one I did looked fine, but the bristles, the hairs, the little bits were too small. It would have taken much longer to complete, and it lost the sense of scale it had with the sort of loincloth trunks that this guy has. This was meant to be really kind of silly in that it's like Masters of the Universe, where Skeletor has full musculature and a skull for a head, and is wearing a loincloth, and it's all very silly. I love that. So, a similar kind of, don't think it rises to the word aesthetic. A similar kind of thinking. That still might be too strong a word. A certain kind of stupidity is being applied here as well. I did just slice. You can see the really hard slices of cutting through the edges of the cape. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just kind of a sculpted lump, but had actual dimensionality. Because it'd be real easy for this to be a bump map, like it's a sphere but has texture put on it, like as if you were sculpting a planet, and you start with a sphere, then you just bump map the continents. That's not the same as, something which has really heavy dimensionality. So I wanted the edges of the cape to really be chunky like that. I'm also trying to make sure it's consistent with the one next to it. And so when I split them in two, I took the one on the left there and I slid it over so it overlapped the one on the right. That would hopefully cover up any seams. We'll have to, fine tune it when we get there. But I like to think I'll be able to finish this during today's stream. At least get the sculpt done. And not just the sculpt, but modifying the figure. I think this is shaping up as a pretty good reference for an illustration. Like I sculpt these pieces, I sculpt these pieces, export that over into Procreate, and then paint over it. So I'm kind of building my reference, my model. But then I also want this to be a 3D printable object. So to do that, things like this foot has to be planted flat so that it can support the weight and not tip over. So this whole leg may have to straighten up in some way, and the foot has to be planted flat on the ground. And then it'll stand. But as it stands right now, it wouldn't stand. So that book you see up top here, this book was sculpted in Shaper 3D. I've been excited about getting into simple filament printing. And I want to print a prayer's handbook. Something that looks like a book, but is a box that can hold the zines I've made. So the zines are A5 size, which is, what is that, 5.8 by 8.3, so fairly large. Small compared to a D&D traditional RPG book, which are usually 8.5 by 11. Those kind of look like textbooks with shiny covers and full color illustrations, but to me they always felt like textbooks. At least in terms of their production quality and in size, and in durability too. They are very durable books. I don't think people give those books that much credit. The old D&D books were not so great. Like that Monster Manual and Fiend Folio might look really pretty, and we might have a lot of nostalgic love for that stuff. And the artwork's amazing. But they fell apart in your hands. And the print production was pretty bad. And the design work was pretty terrible. I mean, totally serviceable as a manual, but, you know, it wasn't going to win any design awards. It's kind of like a phone book of monsters. So I'm just going through with the clay tool, I think, yeah. The clay tool, and just trying to put in some unevenness, a little undulating texture, which we're then going to take the soften brush and run back over the whole thing. Will there be two versions of the book box for Xena? No, because I don't think I could. There might be, if I can figure out a way to reduce the size of it a bit, because as it stands now, it'll be tough to print. It's pushing the limits of what a 3D printer could do, unless you saw that one that Elegoo is making, which will let you print chairs and bookshelves. So you could probably print a step stool with that thing. But it will function as a dice box as well. So I think adhesive backed felt placed at the bottom of the box, so it could function as a and now that I'm figuring out 3D sculpting in that way, not just the kind of piece, here's a piece of clay and let's mush it around until it turns into a 3D model. Actual measurements and trying to, who knows if it'll work. This all is just, you know, I'm going to take my stab at 3D printing it. I'm getting a 3D printer. I have placed an order, which I placed with a nice fat holiday sale discount, and we'll see. It has to have it has to be. It's those two ways to do the a book box. One is to have a hinged lid. I guess there's many different ways. Either a hinged lid, which is fixed to it, or a removable lid, whether it slides off like it's an insert. I worry about that because of warping and because of printing and making sure it works. Or a lid that goes on top, which again could have its share of issues. So I again, just like with the sculpting these minis, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm giving it a shot. Trying to get my math right. Downloaded a program I seem to like. I don't know if I could recommend Shaper 3D because it's got a monthly fee associated with it. They will let you export. Oddly, if you have an STL file, you can export low-res files. Low-res STL files. And what that means is the software kind of hobbles the model, which is bad. I mean, you draw a circle and then you extrude that to create a disc or a cylinder, right? When you export that, it becomes an octagon that's extruded. It cuts the corners of the circle to make it less good. I think it adds a step to ruin the piece in order to make you buy the upgrade, which seems dumb. That's not just limiting its functionality. That is kneecapping its functionality. Yes, a lid with magnets. Currently, I've got placement for two 5mm by 2mm magnets, a top and bottom. I'll show everyone the layout, but just for later on, before I get into that bit, you can just note this book here is part of the initial mock-up I did of it. And this bracket here that you see there, that's a perfect curve. And the same here, this edge of that hinge, perfect curves. Those are cylinders. The edge of the book is a curve. It's not angled in any way. There aren't those sharp lines. The thing added those. Now what I didn't do is when I imported, I made much cleaner looking pages. So then because this is a box, it has to 3D print, I didn't go too funky on the individual pages that make up the fake box. Those are actually kind of just stacks of rectangle of cubes, kind of like flat planes that are stacked up to look like paper, and he does a pretty good job of that. It's not as lively as these things are, which kind of look like tablets that have been stitched together. But the interior of this book up top, I just grabbed the interior of one of these other ones here, so that in terms of this mini, when it prints, it will print well, and those books feel of a kind. And it's not like all these books are very similar and then there's one that stands out dramatically. So I feel like that works. And I didn't mind the extra hard edges there. Again, there's no reason why a magician or a wizard or conjurer of some type wouldn't create a book like that. So again, this is a large figure, so like twice the size of a normal mini. So I don't want it to be too simple, but all right, let's try this. I'm going to save, work on this cape some more. I'm going to smooth it all out, and let's see if we can add some depth to it. And I also want to see if a few things here are working. Like, I want to make sure that our on-screen graphics are happening. Nope, doesn't seem to be happening. So, Streamlab events, don't know why. All of these services wanted me to upgrade last week, and I did not. There we go. Can I adjust the volume of that? Probably not here, but probably over in Streamlabs. I will say the thing I don't like about Streamlabs is it's something that reminded me of some projects I've worked on in the past. Web projects, almost always web projects. I don't think this has happened in many other domains. But a tendency to overbrand everything. It's not on, off. It's activate, deactivate. Everything is, a registered trademark. It's not on, it's let's go. I'm like, people are just looking for the on button, and everything's got to be cute. This isn't just automations. These are it's CloudBot. You want to go to the CloudBot. Why? Everything's cute. Okay. I'm just going to tweak this and see if I can adjust the volume so I'm not terrified every time someone yeah. Everything is so dumb. JRD, how the heck are you? Yeah, I'll have to muck around with this later. I don't think I can change there's definitely a way to change the volume, but it's just dumb. So I'll continue to be terrified as people bounce in and out. Charity, it was a great Thanksgiving. I hope yours was too. It was actually relaxing, which almost never happens. But I took some... I did work on... Of course I worked, right? You know, I'm not going to not work. But it wasn't 12-hour days, and I kind of had a surprise house guest, which was nice. All right, I'm going to remesh this. Bring it down a little bit. Getting back to picture. Oh, that's excellent. Running the smooth tool I mentioned over the whole thing. I want that off. I don't want email coming in while we're here. Okay, I can turn all that off. So that way there's no beeping. We won't be so rudely interrupted. But yeah, it was excellent. So with that smoothed out, we're going to remesh it again. Again, every time you do any kind of major edits to the thing, remesh it. That will spread the mesh evenly over the whole thing and give you more room, more wiggle room to work. And so now I'm using the crease tool, and just as I have with the pieces above, I'm going to try to outline all these sort of prominences that I've painted in here. The idea is not to, I don't want to do this. I don't want to create this shape and then this shape next to it, because then it creates a space in between, which is flat, or is not. It's neither flat nor raised. It's just in the middle and looks. I don't know. I think it breaks the illusion of this being kind of undulating fur. There will be places where I can't pull it off. I can't make it work. But I'll try where I can. Like this one here, this area that is there is kind of unintended, but we can make that work. If anything, that will just be a lower strand of fur. So trying to crease it as little as possible, you know, or to have as few crease marks as possible. How about that? And then just sort of making command decisions halfway through, like, let's make this go, let's make that curve a bit. And then you've got this other kind of unknown area there. See, that spot right there between those two areas is unwelcome, but kind of like everything else about it, so maybe we live with it. But we didn't cook or do anything very fancy for Thanksgiving. I was still picking up pieces after that pipe leak from a few weeks ago. So the plan will be to do something nice for Christmas, the holiday week there. But this was very chill. So and I've been spending a lot of time doing a lot of research on 3D. I'm allowed a day off? I did not know that. I've been researching a lot of 3D. There was a lot of sales at Michael's, so I picked up lots of art paper, that toned paper that I use for those toned paper pieces. They were buy one, get one. And I noticed recently that Michael's has been selling the Glowforge Aura. Which, if you've seen the Glowforge, it's sort of a Apple style laser cutter. In by Apple style, I mean uh, expensive, but it looks fairly easy to use. And it's a few $1,000s. But they've come out with the Glowforge Aura, which is $1,200. It's got a weaker laser, smaller profile, and I mean, it takes up less space on your desk, but it looks really pretty. And it's $1,200, and they had a sale, a few $100s off of it for Black Friday. Again, it's a thing which requires air filtration. You know, you're burning stuff. But I've seen, you know, since the Glowforge kick-started, I've been really excited about that. You know, the possibilities of that machine, like all those plywood book stands that I bring to conventions to stack my books on, the idea of engraving those or taking some other illustrations and kind of just making product with it. But then, you know, there's the crafty side of me, which is just like, ooh, let's play with that. But I went with getting a 3D printer because I've been sculpting now for 2 years. And but again, I'm still not in a position to get a resin printer, and I'm still not entirely sure I want one. I'm impressed by them. The price of them has gone down tremendously. They still stink and require real strong ventilation. Very strong odor associated with them. Don't forget, also needing to take into a store for the tiniest fix instead of being able to do something. Yeah. One of the other fun things I did this week was switching my cell service from AT&T, and having an iPhone made that kind of challenging in ways. AT&T didn't help. But I found that flattering. They didn't want to let me go. Just nice to feel wanted. But when I think about AT&T, sometimes I think they might just be into me for the money. Because their automated voice system says they care, but they never make eye contact. We went with Mint. Oh, excellent. So it's a Cricut laser cutter, safe for home. JRD, exactly. And I think it's a direct threat to Cricut. And the Michaels, there's the good Michaels, the upscale one in the Rich Town Center, and then there's the one on the one by me, where I know everyone there by name, and they finally got it at the smaller one, and they have all the Glowforge approved materials. No doubt horribly overpriced. Again, very much like Apple. I was about to make a joke about, Apple USB cable being $130, but there's an Adam Savage Tested episode where they bring people in to x-ray the power cords, trying to figure out, okay, why is this, how dare they charge this much? Is there any difference really between these two things? And it's astounding. Suddenly that cable from Apple that's $130, you go, that seems cheap for what it does and for what's in there. and you compare it to the $10 one or the $25 one, and you think that will set my house on fire, or half those prongs that are part of the cable aren't connected to anything. They don't do anything. They just hold the wire in place on the cheap one. It's Adam Savage's Tested. Check that out. It's astonishing. I wanted to. I don't want that grid. You go away, grid. Marcos. Tell them, no, they did not. They did not. Although they did kind of make it easy. Only one of the 3 AT&T service agents I spoke with said, is there anything we can do? Offer to, nope. I just really miss the services they used to have. Like, you sign up for a 2-year plan and they give you a phone. I know the cost of the phone was sort of baked in. And it was also, Apple was trying to get people hooked on the devices, so I'm sure they were giving AT&T a sweetheart deal. But now the phones cost as much as an iPad Pro. I'm going to cut this one in half there. But the plan was to... I was thinking about starting the Kickstarter this week. Right now the plan is to do it next week and have it run until the new year. Which is not what I wanted. I wanted to have it done this year so I could ship out at least the PDFs before the end of the year. Maybe I'll shorten the campaign. I'd really love to get the PDFs out to everyone before the new year. But if we have to wait, we have to wait. The holiday just messed up my plans, and I have been working a lot on the middle age. There were a few huge projects that I was working on all summer. I mentioned them here on the streams. Education projects for comics. By and large, it was also a park sign that I did. So if you go to Governor's Park in Tallahassee in Florida, as you all will at some point, there will be what they call an interpretive sign explaining just why trees are so great. And I illustrated that. But then a lot of textbook stuff, which I can't talk about. But hopefully I'd love to be able to share that work when I can. But that took up a lot of basically most of the summer. And for folks who watch Pencil to Pencil, we don't have an ETA for our return. We thought we might have an extra episode this week, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. There was some just everyone getting back on their feet after stuff. So maybe a return in January. That would be likely. Because one of the co-hosts, Mike, had some health problems. He's gone into detail on his social media. I'm not gonna talk about his stuff. What do we got here? They make you sign an NDAs for textbooks. No, it's out of respect for their project, and our contracts usually have carve-outs for use in portfolios and things like that. because it's their work. I mean, they're buying it outright as work for hire. But it's mostly just out of respect for their, let them show it off on their schedule, and then once it's live, then we'll share it. I don't think they think in those terms. Like, I know Marvel and DC would get upset with their staff for sharing artwork outside of approved channels. I used to help run a website. I used to help run some news websites for comics back in the golden age. The golden age of webs of the internet, not of comics. And boy, Marvel and DC used to get so upset if any of the people who were reporting or interviewing someone, you'd interview someone and they say, hey, what are you working on? They say, here's some pictures from the latest project. And the PR department of the comic company would be like, hey, we already have an exclusive deal to share that with Newsarama or Comic Book Resources or who knows, Entertainment Weekly. So the artists were not able to show their work. So it's not like that. It's more like when they announce it, then we'll share it. And also, when they announce it, they'll probably show it in a context that, in a way that will make more sense. Because these aren't pages per se of artwork. They're kind of like individual comic panels designed to work together in an interface. And so if they can share it with the interface, it'll all make more sense. Actually, let's indent that entirely. And getting Mike well. Absolutely, JRD. Plus, the holidays are always bad for our schedules. I don't think there's been a holiday season that Pencil to Pencil hasn't taken off. So, and Mike's the hardest working guy in comics. He does two daily newspaper comic strips. So, that he's able to do that is a miracle. I hate that there. So I'm going through here with the crease tool and kind of outlining every one of these bits of fur. Again, I know there's a stamp. I'm sure there's a stamp. Or if I had an afternoon, I could just make one. I did that with chainmail. Let me show everybody that. That'd be fun to see. So initially, when I sculpted Sir Quimp, when I draw the character, he's got a chainmail pattern sort of drawn on him. It's not really chainmail. It's more like a comic booky kind of chainmail. It's just little bits of, just little tick marks that kind of imply armor. I really like the effect. I started doing it with the very first episode, kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, let's just try it. And I liked it so much, I just kept doing it. So when I was sculpting that figure of Sir Quimp, I just kind of made it discs. I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't really been using this program all that long, and I came up with something, and I really like it. But if I really wanted to make chainmail, I would do something like this. I would go to the... And I sculpted a... Not sculpted, but in a 3D program. Not even 3D. In a vector program. And then smoothed it. I created a repeating texture, a repeating pattern. It's basically just one link surrounded by pieces. And it's all done in grays. The highest point will come forward and the darkest point will go back. And I could just paint chainmail on anybody at this point. Now it's a square pattern, so it will have a hard edge. Normally what I do with those things is I take the overall pattern, the overall rectangle, the square shape of it all, and I fade it to white. So I basically just put a gradient of white on each side. So it's basically this heavy, dense shape in the middle, fading out. And then when I paint the texture in, the edges of that texture will fade out. And then I can put another one next to it and try to get it approximately the same size and try to get those fades to overlap. Or create a seam of some kind. Like, selection mask, lasso. Let's say there's a seam that goes right down the figure right there. And then when I'd have to pop this forward. Let's do that. We'll do that. That's the stamp tool. We don't want that one. We want the selection mask tool. Thickness. Extract. Oh boy, too much. Oh, I forgot I already have a selection down there. Dang it. Let's bring it down a little bit. That's fine. Then we'll use a trim tool. Wow, we are real. This is all slapdash. So then when I select this thing, the stamp tool, selection mask, and then selection mask, invert the selection, so now I could have two different halves of it, each one filled separately. David! And so using that simple-ish Adobe Illustrator bump map that I just put together in Illustrator, I could paint on a chainmail texture. But it doesn't go with this figure, so we're not going to bother with that. But really fun to experiment with. But I imagine I could do something like that for the fur on the back of this cloak. So it's not all manually sculpted. David, I appreciate you sharing that process for the that home repair work you're doing. Really interesting. I felt bad asking you to repeat that, but super interesting. So the program I've been teaching myself, like what did I do on Thanksgiving? I taught myself my day off, Jared D, what we were just talking about. I had a nice relaxing Thanksgiving. I taught myself a 3D program. Shaper 3D. Because what it does is it's really good at mechanical things. So if you want something to be, precisely X number of millimeters across or X number of inches across, you can specifically designate those things. How big do you upscale a print of this fellow before you notice a significant quality loss in the geometry? I don't know. I would hope that most of this would be mitigated. And again, I'm working probably too small. The base here across is 2 inches. So I think he'd probably stand with the axe 6 inches tall. But I don't know. I think the layer lines from the print, which are probably analogous to like the halftone pattern in old comics would probably be a fairly forgiving, or at least mitigate the kind of crunchiness of it. What I did was, this was all one big object that I was sculpting, and I was like, okay, I'm going to run out of geometry because it can only do so much. So I ended up breaking the cape into chunks, and I'm sculpting it in pieces so I can not suffer those limitations quite so quickly. I think so, David. I think so. I think for purposes of table display, once you get into it, once you get the figure nice and large, that's somewhat forgiving as well. A lot of people will. I think you talked about this with using a plaster that may have had a little bit of like talcum powder in it or something like that. There's tons of ways of mitigating the effect. Now the printer, I'm getting a 3D printer, similar in functionality to the one you have, David. I'm not getting resin. Again, I'm in a place where that technically isn't possible. I need much greater ventilation, and I have to decide whether or not I want to deal with the smell, the chemicals, the danger to pets. There's a lot of things to think about before getting into chemistry of that type. And I have a really good guy who prints at very reasonable prices. But there are limitations to the size of a resin print. This new printer I'll be able to make a larger Sir Quimp figure. But it'll have striations, I think, if you get in close. But I think as a table display, in terms of something that people could see from a distance and go, whoa, that's awesome, or what the hell is that? More likely the latter. It'll be amazing. Also, it could be something that'll be behind me. That open bit of wall there, you see more of it in the pencil-to-pencil streams. It's another bookcase right next to it, but this open column, and I could put things on there like a large Sir Quimp figure. I was looking at different decorations and things that I could put behind me. I'm like, I should make them. I should just make them. Why am I? There is a glorious kobold statue made by WizKids. It is a Pathfinder kobold. It stands 3 feet tall. So, life size for a thing that's not alive, it doesn't live. It's 3 feet tall. It has a gigantic spear. I saw this thing at Gamehole Con. It's spectacular. Never in a million years could I justify purchasing it. But I check out the price on Amazon from time to time, and it was on sale for Black Friday. I think the price is still there. It was usually $600. I think it was down to $300 or $400. Never going to get it. It would be the dumbest thing in the world to have. I don't have the space for it. But I'm like, I can just make something like that. You just have to print it in sections. And then, when it's done printing, sandpapering off the rough parts. A lot of people use these 3D printers to make helmets. Like a Mandalorian helmet, things like that. And the striations from a 3D printer, a filament-based 3D printer. First of all, the resin printers aren't big enough that I'm aware of. So the filament-based printers, they come up with all these striations. It ruins the effect of the Mandalorian helmet that you want to have shiny. So they hit it with like 10 passes of sandpaper and then coat it with this kind of paste shellac to kind of help fill in the grooves, and then sand that, and then paint that, and that comes out perfect. So all of this stuff is not, it's still, I want to be able to walk up to the computer and say Earl Grey tea hot, and it just pops out the mini. Fully painted, exactly everything I want that I've specified in the program. But we're still very far away from that. Putty and lots of sanding. Yeah. But yeah, for sure, I think you could res something like this up. I think the weaknesses of the 3D printing will be greater than the weaknesses of the sculpt, by and large, or help mitigate it, like how any really bad CGI fight should happen in a rainstorm, or in poorly lit conditions, so you can't quite see the Gumby quality of the Hulk because he's fighting the Abomination in the rain. So the next project I'm doing is called... Ooh, I said that like a New Yorker. It is called The Prayer's Handbook. It is for the Metadomain Cleric. If you go to Prayer's Handbook, link in the doobly-doo. And I think I just do this. Will this work? It should work. There we go. I don't know if that appeared in both YouTube and Twitch, but there should be a link there for the next campaign. When I last checked, 261 people have queued up to be alerted when it goes live, which is more than any project I've had so far. Although I've had more lead time with this one than any of the others. And the idea is it's for clerics who think this all might be a game. It's a Dungeons and Dragons compatible book. And with a 3D printer, I really want to sculpt a actual Prayer's Handbook, an actual book box, which would function not only as a container for the zines I've made, but also function as a dice tray. So you can roll your dice in it. So to do that, it had to be the size, it had to be large enough to hold an A5 size book. And multiple A5 size books. So when I do not only Metadomain, but all the books that come after it. And I have some good books coming up. The one for next Zine Quest in February is going to be great, I think. It's not a subclass book, it's for magic items. And I think it'll be cool. I think everyone's going to like it. I know there's been a lot of magic items books before. Like, it's just, they're a dime a dozen. But I think these will be funny. I think these will be useful in games. I think they will be items that players want and that dungeon masters want their players to have. They have interesting mechanics. Almost all of them already they share a set of mechanics. And that part alone will make all of them a little more interesting, a little more desirable for players and characters, with a mechanism that would allow dungeon masters to put the brakes on if it's overpowered. But that's 2024 talk. So because I wanted a book box container for Prayer's Handbook, not as something that would be a base reward, but something that perhaps we add on later, because I really want to make sure that this thing I'm making, I can actually make the damn thing. If I can make the damn thing, then we'll add it. And if I can't make the damn thing, well, forget about it. Okay, I'm putting too much detail into stuff no one's ever going to see. This is the underside of the cape. So when I get the printer, the first thing I'm going to print is probably a test object or two, maybe a few pieces that you need to make the printer work a bit better. The very next thing I'm printing is the house. Likely at a reduced at a reduced size. I can't print the full size thing, but I definitely want that on my table when I go to conventions. And then I'll have it available in the store as well, in my web shop, if people want to order one for their table. And, you know, and I won't sell it if it's not going to look good, if it doesn't look right. I'm bracing myself because I'm so used to seeing resin prints now. I have to know that, you know, FDM prints just don't look quite as sharp. More visible layer lines and things like that. I have been spoiled. So when I got the basic book shape sculpted in Shaper 3D, I brought it into this model and made it one of the books that this creature is carrying. I haven't saved in a while, and I haven't sipped coffee in a while. Let's fix both of those. David, that is absolutely true. The distance between the two bookshelves here is about 14 inches. So it's going to be, the first one I'm going to build is going to be, I don't know, at least 10 times the size of the miniature. So like a 10-inch base, although he's pretty broad. I don't know how much he sticks off of the base. I'd like to make a full Maledicta, the sword. Sculpting that in sections. Again, this program, Shaper 3D, and it's again, the only caution I have against someone picking up Shaper 3D is the subscription cost. The free version, which is really cool, it seems actively hobbled in a way that makes me think they went out of their way to let people play with it. So it's not a free version because you can't do much with it. I think they do have a free version for educators and for students and educators. So in that regard, wonderful. If you are a teacher or a student, by all means, that's great. But any of us who are not, it's $25 a month. So I know by the end of 2024 that will be half the price of Disney Plus. But it still seems like a lot right now. So I did get it. They had a Black Friday sale where they reduced it to $20 a month. And if my immediate experience with it wasn't so positive, I might have skipped that. But let me save and I can show folks what I was able to build in Shaper 3D. So this is the handbook box. And then we'll take us back into Nomad Sculpt in a moment, and I can show you how I brought this into Nomad Sculpt, group some things together so the hinge of the box will work the way I want it to. So I was able to sculpt this all, I don't know, 80% of this on Thanksgiving while sitting on the couch. Our tradition is to watch James Bond movies on Thanksgiving, which I'm sure it's the same everywhere. The cheese, so much cheese. So these hinges I'm hoping will work and will print. And there's a pin here. I don't quite have the positive and negative elements to, it's meant to be glued together. It's not going to screw together or just fasten like Legos. I'm assuming I have to build in more tolerances, so things would be a little bit looser. But I would think that these hinges will work. Hide the cover. That's the interior. This blue shape you see there, that's the size of one of my zines. So it will fit in this box. Not snug, not so that you have to like dig a fingernail in there or it won't tip out. I want it to have a little bit of give. I think I can... where can I do? I don't want to... Well, let's do that. We'll expand this a little bit. So it will fit inside the box. What's in the box? And let's look at it from the top. So you zoom in to get a little more detail in the snapping. So there's some room in there for to do what I'm hoping it's going to do. Anywho, let's get that back over there and flatten out of the way. This is room here and here, 5mm by 2mm magnets, which would also go into the cover in those two places. I think the other magnets are still selected, so you're seeing them. But and I'm going to engrave the top. The top of this box thing is going to be all, I'm going to bring that into Nomad Sculpt and just really go nuts with dice shapes. And I think I want it to feel like using dice, but with like a geocentric, terracentric view of the cosmos, with like a big center D20 in the middle, and then patterns of rings and like the kind of wavy lines of stars. Like they would, whenever they drew the sun, it would be like this beautiful illustration of the sun, and then out of the sun would come these kind of wavy lines to indicate, almost childlike, but small enough and delicate enough to make it feel cool. And I think the idea is to really think about the depth of this so that it creates depth. So it's a 3D piece. It's not just, I'm usually trying to make 2D look 3D. I'm really trying to embrace the 3D part of this. I'd like it to feel as if it were sculpted, as if it were carved out of leather or something like that. Isn't Disney Plus going away? They're losing millions on it, and the head of it made a quote about parents need to prep for it to be gone. Really? I hadn't heard that. I know that they were talking about March next year or something like that, Disney merging with Hulu. It's a thing where I think every bean counter there is going to be like, why do we have infrastructure for 3 separate streaming services, ESPN, Disney, and Hulu? Disney made the big jump with bringing Deadpool and the old Netflix Marvel shows, Daredevil, Luke Cage, all that stuff, to allow for adult mature content, R-rated content over on Disney Plus. I don't know. If HBO can become Max, then Disney can make many dumb decisions. But Disney Plus seems like a no-brainer for a brand. I don't know why they... The only reason to not have it all under one roof would be so that they can sell it off in pieces later, I think. I don't know. I can't make heads or tails of their system. But anyway, everything in this was able to create and measure exactly how I wanted it. This is called Shaper 3D. I really like the software. Let me get back to here. I appreciate everyone letting me go on that detour. So I brought that in, changed the interior pages to be more like the other ones here, and put that box there before I added other little doodads. But you can see how when I brought this in, it sharpened those lines, those nice curves that I have in the model over in Shaper 3D. Their free version cut those corners, and I don't like it. So, opening up the ball, opening up the test box. So this, the cover. So it should conceivably hinge properly. I hope. But we shall see. HBO changed the name of to Max HBO changed the name to Max because it was a loophole in their contracts where they only had to pay residuals if it had the HBO name on it. Oof. Well, that's all awful. Yeah, I saw that Professor Dungeon Master. This might crash. It did. Having very complicated programs, very complicated models open, it can choke when it's trying to launch. Especially if you go from large file to medium file to small file, you're asking the computer to do too much. So it's still just an iPad. Okay, still working on that cape. So right now we're outlining everything with the crease tool. When we go back, we're going to invert the crease tool and add those kind of peaks along the top of every one of those creases we just did. And then this thing is going to be close to done. Well, I say done. So I did get Disney Plus, and what made me finally go back there was Hulu, which I have for things like The Bear and a lot of FX shows. They increased their price to $17.99 a month, and the bundle with Disney Plus was $19 a month. So I had to get Hulu. I think I had to get Hulu on the phone to even make the two systems talk to each other. I'm like, this is not good. But I didn't realize at the time when I made that call that they were that they're months away from merging the two networks together. So it's very dumb that I had to do that, but whatever. And I caught up on, or I'm catching up on Mandalorian. In the past, I would just buy it for a month and then watch whatever I hadn't seen. I wanted to get it just to watch the latest season of Loki. I skipped Secret Invasion because of the AI garbage on the credits. But I logged in there the other night to see, is there anything worth watching on this thing? And I saw Doctor Who. I'm like, what? I had heard that they were going to bring Doctor Who over through that. And the new episode is out, kind of a holiday special. I was excited to see that it was based on a story by Pat Mills and Dave Gibbons. Loosely based, at best. And it was excellent. I was excited to see it. And when I say it was excellent, I mean I liked it. Cave, how are you? You can do what some insane people do and make a new email account for a free trial. Rinse and repeat. Oh, that makes sense. GRD says, we have a few services, but on the lowest tiers. The two must-haves are Discovery and Formula One. Formula One, really? Fantastic. On principle, I can't pay for one and then see ads. I hate that. I think I have... Now I have this Disney Plus Hulu combo thing. Because it was $2 more a month and they got me that way. I have YouTube Premium. Oh, I take it back. I pay for the ad version, or the ad version of Paramount Plus. But now that Picard is over, I'm not so sure if it might be a thing where I pop in and out of that. They're all such weasels. I mean, I think Disney Plus started 2 years ago, and it was $6.99 a month. Now it's $10 a month for the version with ads. Which, bringing us back to D&D for a minute, that's exactly how their subscription system's going to work, right? Use their VTT for whatever low price, low price, and then use the low price to drive other people out of business, and then get rid of it. I kind of feel like that's partly what Amazon did with Comixology. I mean, they bought the infrastructure because they didn't have a way to handle comics, and then they brought it into their system, and they're like, why are we managing two different bits of software? Why do we have a Kindle software and Comixology software? It's just books. My graphic novels are available on Amazon for Kindle. And I haven't checked in a while, but they have been charging, since I first started publishing there, they charge based on the size of the file. There's a quote-unquote delivery fee, which is a holdover from Kindle when you would download your books overnight, or you would download your subscription to the newspaper overnight, and they wanted to charge people based on bandwidth because, that costs real money. Or at least it used to. The idea that they're still charging for it now is bonkers. And it really hurts comics creators because our books weigh more. Every page is pictures. So, a 32-page comic weighs more than all of the, an entire series of other books. Many series of other books. Everything in the Disney Vault and all Marvels and Star Wars shows on demand all the time, $20 to $30 for release. I think so, David. I think so. I think the idea that it's interesting that I will see from time to time over on Amazon Prime Disney shows. Netflix has Disney movies and things like that. It's interesting that not only is it all on Disney Plus, but it's also available through their streaming platform. And it's also a thing where in the past I would have purchased a movie. Like I want to get the DVD or purchase the Apple edition of, I don't know, Blue Beetle or something like that. But I don't think I'm going to watch them more than once. So to own them, even to own the pixels of them, the ownership is less important to me with a lot of this content. But the idea, I don't know. If someone said it's $20 a month, you get, let's say it's $5 a month, you get all the Simpsons episodes to watch. It's like Disney Plus has all them. Okay, so that's step 1. Okay, that was really like step 20. The next part is, after we save, I go through with that crease tool and I invert the function so it doesn't dig in, it raises, it puts a peak instead of a valley. And then on all these ones, I'm going to remesh first. Let's do this. Remesh, keep sharp edges, increase the res, and it might crash. There's a really good video essay I watched about that said streaming is essentially the cryptocurrency of the entertainment industry. Every studio sunk tons of money into it and were shocked it didn't turn a profit. Well, that's the part of it that's so dumb. That's just... Everyone looked at what Netflix was doing and they said, well, what if we all did that? It's like, well, if you all did that, then you wouldn't have a Netflix, right? It's insane. But compared to all the other ways, I wonder if Disney Plus makes more money than movie sales on Apple. I know they both happen at the same. They're not an either or proposition, but which one's more profitable for them? Every time Apple licenses, essentially, or sells a copy of Iron Man, or Star Wars, or a box set of Star Wars or whatever, do they make more money off of the sales of the digital editions through Amazon and through iTunes than they make off of their own streaming platform? Bandwidth doesn't actually cost them more money. Exactly, Telmont. Exactly. It's crazy. David says, I think not only are people not buying physical media, lots of people are getting rid of their physical media because it's streaming. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some I'm absolutely keeping, but there's some that you just can't get anymore. There's incredibly dumb, but it hit me at the right point in a very dumb, I don't know, early 20-something Steve. There was a TV show called Dream On HBO. John Landis was a creative director of it, and also the two creators of Friends. It's largely unwatchable, but charming in that the conceit was the main character was constantly daydreaming and Walter Mitty-like a little bit, but it was quick cut punctuation of clips from old movies and old TV shows that would kind of mock what he's saying, almost inverting Mystery Science Theater, where the film clips were commenting on the story. Not high art, but the DVD collections don't exist and the streaming rights don't exist because it was a rights nightmare because of all the old shows. It's stuff like that. Like, there's so many things which are lost because it's a rights nightmare. Where it used to be, well, this book exists, so we can or you go to the library. So we've been trained to really rely on streaming. Yeah, David, it's weird. When the internet goes down, I think people are just kind of staring into the middle distance. What do we do with ourselves? Like, I put in a DVD or I put on a CD or one of those things. One of the things with their paper spines, I forget. Used to be a thing. Right. Tell you what, I hate to do this. I'm going to do a nice big brush, very low intensity, a quick pass of smoothing over the whole thing. Now the crease tool again. There's also issue with DVD extras, right? Like, I have those, I mean, Apple's pretty good about it. It was really interesting. There's an incredibly adorable movie I stumbled onto. It's an anime. It's called Penguin Highway. I haven't watched all of it yet because I've just been so busy. And it starts off, it's very adorable. But it wasn't streaming anywhere. I had to find it. Apple wanted $10, I think, for it. But I found that Tubi had it. Or Hoopla, which is connected to the local library, which basically just limits how many things you can have out. You essentially take the movie out for 3 days, or the audiobook out for a week, which is a great service. And I forget which one it was. I think Hoopla only had the subtitled version, and Tubi had the dubbed version, which was pretty cool. But yeah, the DVD extras, thinking about that Lord of the Rings, there's no way the one you get from Apple includes all that stuff. I'm not sure if people do want to watch the not extended cut of anything. But I see that Apple sells the theatrical cut of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Well, The Hobbit can go. But where can I find a copy of Return of the King, the Rankin Bass version? Apart from archive.org. So I gotta go through each one of these. I have been watching Crunchyroll lately, which that's a good argument against physical copies of anything, because I've been watching One Piece, which has got thousands of episodes. I might need a bigger apartment. Telemont says the problem with digital is if something happens to your account you don't actually own. Oh yeah, right. It's all just, and you can't lend anything. That's one of the things I like about the digital rights management I use on my books. If you buy it from my web shop, all it says is, and I think this is how Drive-Thru RPG works as well. It says this book belongs to Telemont, or this book belongs to David. And if David wants to share it with his friends, knock yourself out. Now, I did find recently someone had a copy of Intoximancy over on Scribd. and I followed the steps to have that removed. That's a different thing. I could see who did it because it was watermarked. It wasn't watermarked from my website. It was watermarked from who watermarked it? Drive Through RPG. And I didn't report the sharer over on Drive Through. But I'm all for people sharing the stuff because it should be like a book. I mean, even I got so much grief early on in the early days of the interwebs when I said stuff like they're going to come after libraries. Because I still feel like it's a, and at one point they did. Why would you buy anything if you just go to the library? And I think they found it much easier just to push forward laws that would cut the budgets to local libraries so they don't get the stuff. I'm amazed Hoopla exists. I can get audiobooks for free. You know, I get 2 weeks to listen to them. And if I want to take them out again, I can. But I'm pretty sure the authors, or at least the publishers, get money. And it's so interesting now that everyone's a creator. It's so... That might be the biggest change in the last 20 years. That it was just, there wasn't even the assumption that you would be a content creator. Like... I think everybody made stuff when they were kids. Some people did it into their early 20s. They were in a band, or they wrote novels, or they drew comics. Then you get to be 23, 24, and then you stop being a creator, and it's time to become put on your consumer hat, and you would just stay a consumer. And now it's like, it's so interesting when someone says, I'm gonna, their kid wants to be a content creator or something like that. Like, did they say what kind of content? I say that as a cartoonist who's sculpting and making RPG books and decks of cards. I promise if I ever find a lane, I'll stay in it. Exactly. A quarter of my Amazon Music purchases are gone because Bezosville no longer keeps those files. Oh, wow. Eric says, pretty good. Armageddon on Netflix doesn't come with Ben Affleck's honest commentary about making fun. One Piece, Bleach, and Dragon Ball each have close to it, or not over 1,000 episodes. It could be they have a PDF on something that someone else swiped from that person. Yeah, exactly. JRD, so good to see you. Glad you stopped in. Glad to hear you had a nice Thanksgiving. Yeah, I hope to see you on a coffee break over on the Pencil to Pencil YouTube channel or Jamar Nicholas's own social media. It's a party everyone's invited to. Oh heavens! Oh no, I was doing that right. I thought I had the effect inverted. It's been weird. I've been watching stuff just on YouTube. I'm also surprised at the amount of stuff I can't find. The idea that YouTube and Google have gotten so bad, so overwhelmed with garbage, that even as a search engine, they're not really helping. You try to seek any amount of information, you immediately find a 15-minute video with AI, with virtual narration. It's not helpful. And I don't know what happens to the content that's created on YouTube when the account closes. It would be in the past when you had your website, your blogger page, or your, I don't know, GeoCities account, where things like archive.org would try to keep a copy of the things it would find. Now, with everyone storing their material on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, when you close out your account, or when the system closes out your account, everything you made goes away. So an interview you might have done, or an essay you would have written, things that people, the content that was created by these aspiring creators, just gone. At least archive.org kind of, for whatever people think about the copyright implications, and I think that if it's not in print anywhere, that I think it should be fair game. I don't want these lines I'm drawing on top. I want them to roughly run down the center, but I want them to have a little bit of wiggle to them, so they feel more like fur and less like, I don't know. I think that just adds a bit of waviness to it. So one of the things I don't know about the 3D printer is how loud it will be. Will I be able to have it printing in this room and still be able to stream? That sort of thing. How we doing? Well, it seems like I have folks over on the YouTube, folks over on Twitch. I really appreciate you being here. For those who don't know, my name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. And I make RPG stuff. Currently, I'm sculpting a cape. It's hard to tell at this magnification, but it is a cape of a creature from my next book called The Prayer's Handbook. It is a subdomain. I'm sorry. It is a subclass. I'm going to say a subdomain. It is a subclass of cleric, compatible with Dungeons and Dragons. Currently, this creature has a feature which I really like. I'm not sure if it will keep it. I like the feature a lot. I'm not sure if I don't like to overload a creature with too many abilities, because then it becomes tough to run. And I like creatures having a signature ability. So something that really stands out. Hopefully something that's unique. One of the things I don't like about a lot of Dungeons and Dragons creatures is that they often feel like reskinned monsters you've seen before. I like creatures with interesting mechanics, novel mechanics, and ones which have real personality. There's a creature called a Bodak in D&D, which has an aura within 30 feet, and anyone 30 or 60 feet, and it goes through walls, doors, pretty much anything. Probably not a magical barrier of some kind, but what it does is it causes like 5 points of necrotic damage per round, anyone within 30 or 60 feet of it. So you're going through a dungeon, and suddenly the people in the front don't even see the creature you're fighting or chasing or about to interact with, and suddenly everyone in the front, okay, you all take 5, each one of you two take 5 points of necrotic damage. And the creature can just be on the other side of a concrete wall. And where do you go? Can you go forward? Are there more of them? But it's immediately like, oh crap, it's a Bodak. And they became like a very fearsome thing that our group was worried about the whole time, because, you know, we might be able to make short work of most opponents, but only if we can see them. Only if we can get in the same room with them. Okay, I feel like that's pretty good. Now some of those bits of fur are more prominent because I went over them a second time with a second elevation, like a second inverse of the crease. So not poking down, but raising up again, and that casts a little more shadow. I'm still very concerned with it. I'm going to highlight this here by changing the color of the thing. Where those two sections overlap. So I'm going to take this one and use the drag tool and drag it down underneath the other one. Actually, I'm going to make sure this is... No, let's do it this way. I was going to say front-facing vertex only, which is something I'll do sometimes to... make sure we're not affecting the underside of it. But when using the drag tool that way, front-facing vertex only basically only touches the thing. It really warps the model in tiny, tiny ways that can accumulate to something really bad. So I'd say don't do that. It's a shame you don't know anyone who offered multiple times to talk to you about it. I felt like we talked about it a bit, Cave. And I do appreciate all the advice. I'm just mostly hamstrung by the fact where I live. Not Florida. But, although there is that. But the fact that I don't have ventilation. And, all right. Have you done any mechanical sculpting? Maybe you dreamed it. Not even once when we were at Gamehole Con. Except I can answer pretty much all your questions, even the ventilation ones. Didn't you say that the ventilation wasn't a big deal at Gamehole Con? That I was probably worrying for nothing? But I'm hoping in the next year or so I'm going to find myself in a place where I can... Tell you what, I'm going to save as right now a new version of this, number 6. And once it saves, if it saves, I'll take this opportunity to delete lots of extra bits that I have in here that I've been keeping, which I don't think I need anymore. You should reduce the file size a bit. And now for the cape, I'm going to save this again. Tell you what, let's save as one more time. So we kind of a pristine version right before this round. I did not, unless there was much more context. There's definitely reason to worry, especially with resin printers, but it's not difficult to mitigate. Oh, that's interesting. I think that's probably what you probably were just saying. I think you're maybe hinting that I was overly concerned about it. Do you like the printer you have? All right, I'm going to attempt to join these together. If it crashes, it crashes. Hey, how about that? I do, but it's an old one now. There are better ones out there. Do you... Yeah, our mutual friend Dan got one, and I don't think he's taken it out of the box yet. I think he's had it since the summer. Yeah, I've been really impressed by them. I think once I get into a larger place, I'm definitely going to pick your brain about resin printers. I've known the FDM printer I wanted for a while, but resin printers, I'm completely out of my depth. For FDM printers, I had the XYZ DaVinci for a while. I basically hated the bed leveling process. It was lots of knobs underneath the print bed, and it would pain in the ass. And I wasn't a sculptor at the time. So I thought, oh, it'd be cool to print stuff, and I'm like, I ran out of stuff to print very quickly. And now that I'm making stuff, but I'm also thinking about simple structural things, and that's one of the reasons why I like Shaper 3D. I can easily picture printing table displays. You know, the structures that I would set up on my table to put my books on. Things like that. That seems like super easy. You know, it's basically two pieces. For an FDM printer, the Bamboo Labs are amazing, are ready to print right out of the box, and the quality is insanely good if you design minis for FDM. And they are super fast. That's precisely the one I ordered. That's precisely the one I ordered, Cave. And they had a Black Friday sale. You know, I know they're over a year old, but the company comes from highly recommended. The replacement parts are quite inexpensive. Excellent. And everything I read, again, and I wanted dumb. I wanted, you know, this stuff, learning to do this stuff is complicated enough. And printing this as an oversized is, I think printing monsters will be better at it. As for resin, do you have a window? I do. I do have a window. Isn't the bath part of it and all that stuff, the wash, the rinse and wash stuff, isn't that the biggest pain? Okay, does it stink? That's a big concern for me. I also worry about the pets. I feel like with the FDM, with PLA, it's not a big deal. You know, especially if having an enclosure for the unit, not if you take some steps. That's good to know. All right, everybody. Okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to be right back. An hour and 47 minutes, hour and 48 minutes of streaming. I will be right back. So far, so good. I think the remaining things I have to do with this, I think I have to put some decoration on that armor plate up front. I decided at some point along the way that... Darn it, did I just do this? There was another chest element that I had that had kind of had almost geometric ribs. I'll carve more in. I don't have to worry about that. You can see little bits of the cape poking out under that shoulder pad right there. I think that's cape. Yeah. I'm going to cut that off. I'm also going to bring some of the cape up over because I spent so much time modeling this this fur. I'm like, I want to show it off. Also going to double check stuff like that isn't poking through the armor. There's a lot. These books are covering a host of sins, which I'm absolutely fine with. When you're done with the stream today, give me a call and explain. That sounds great. Okay, if that sounds great. I'd be excited to print minis. To actually print the minis. But at least learning more. There's also the problem with what I like about Bamboo Labs is that they've largely been consistent. There's also almost like a limit to how good FDM printers can get until the nozzles get smaller, or they devise a thinner plastic that will cool in time. It's almost like they're hitting a structural limit to how much, the kind of improvements you can have. I know the Bamboo Labs kind of came out, and Creality came out of with some really good ones. But that have you looked at that Elegoo printer that they're doing a Kickstarter for right now? The one that's the size of a Barca lounger. That's a reference everyone gets. It's the size of a recliner. It's huge. It looks like it can print furniture. It's amazing. You saw your post on it? Yeah. I'm like, I was thinking you could print a laundry basket. I would actually be... I don't know. You'd the spools. The filament spools that you would need. Or you'd have to daisy chain them in some way. Did they show that in the video? Of the... Oh, you ran out of filament. There's got to be a system to keep going. Unbelievable. All right, everybody. I'll be back in a few minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. All right, where are we? All right, so we finished the cape, I think. I'm pretty happy with it. It's very chunky. I could see mucking around with it a little bit more, going in there, especially where the elements overlap, because as I mentioned before, I built that in thirds. I'm sure it's also a very large file, so I'm going to go here and decimate it. Like, it's 2 million. What do you call... I don't know what those are. It's 2 million. That's too many millions. So I'm going to try to decimate it. That'll cut the file size in half, and then I'll do it again. Now, you go too far, it starts to really break the thing up. But I can also go in there and tighten up the model as well. Let's see if we have symmetry back on with this. Let's grab the crease tool. The crease tool. Weaken it a little bit. I think I can lower the resolution of that thing too. Yeah, that's gigantic. I think I increased the resolution thinking that I was going to apply a chainmail texture to that part. I think that's also why I smoothed it out, like it would be a shirt or something like that. But I think the idea of just having a skull face and a muscled body is very silly, and again, very apologies to Skeletor. He knows what he did. So I'm going to separate that cape into pieces. Whoa, too many pieces. That means there's a lot of debris here. $82 pieces. So you can see all these kind of scraps floating in space. Those came off when I separated those. So great. So what I just want to do is cut off this little extra bit that's sticking out. I don't think it's visible on the other side. Yeah, I don't know why they say that, and it doesn't decimate the thing. So I think I need to put runes and stuff on the blade as well. Also talked about smoothing the edges of this axe a little bit, so it catches more light and it looks a little more weathered, like it's seen some combat. I think any edges that are too sharp just don't look right. They look 3D. They look sculpted or digitally sculpted or CGI. It's really interesting. There was a Kickstarter that's going on right now. When I looked at the art, and I immediately thought it was AI. And according to the creators, it is not. I think this guy is just one of the ones that AI keeps ripping off. It's got that very telltale color palette, but the hands were exquisite. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is an AI. But I want to put a pattern on the axe. It's a little bland at the moment. Also, for the sake of anybody who's going to 3D print this thing, including myself, I want to carve some notches in the blade, because that's probably where the some of the supports will be. Now I can do something like separate the arm and create a peg joint system, a way to join those. That's probably what I want to do. At least print that arm separately. Okay, but part of me is like, do I want to put armor on these arms? Initially, in the drawing I had, they have armor. But at some point, when I took the armor off when I changed I made the belt larger and kind of changed that armor to kind of just a front plate. Suddenly, armor didn't make much sense. None of this makes sense, but I think it's just going to be. I think it's just going to be skin. All right, so we'll do some adjusting here. Like all this stuff has to come up underneath the bicep. I'm sorry, underneath the chest. Let's try merging these things together. See if I don't hate it. I'm just going to lasso them and save before it crashes, and I will attempt to remesh them. Turn the intensity way up. I just want to get rid of this lump right there. So I will remesh it again and then smooth it some more. So Cave, I was reading your flavor textbook yesterday. I was digging through a lot of the stuff I picked up at Gamehole Con. I think that's spectacular. I think you did a great job. I hope more people get to see it. Did I get through all of it? No, no. I was basically stopping at some of these recipes and trying to think, could I even make them? I know you're saying it's not. I don't have to worry about the fumes as long as I got an open window. Uh, keep the cats away. But and I also I did the first pass of looking at all the artwork. I can't help myself. Um, and I definitely along the way took in some of the pictures. So like, okay, that's something. I don't cook a lot of red meat, but I think they look great. I think the book itself looks great. Whoever printed it did a good job too. I wasn't daunted by it. I thought, yeah, I'd watch your cooking show. I'm just going to select these, grabbing there. And I know you've set up at conventions selling your leatherworking and maps. Have you done anything like from the zine perspective? Oh, and when we talk later on, there was a question you had. There's something else we talked about at Game Hall Con. We could talk about that too. I feel like I'm going to merge the shoulder in with the rest of the arm. I kept them separate and thinking I might end up separating them. Like kept them separate, like I might I'd further adjust them, like change the flex of the arm or something like that. But I think I feel pretty good about the whole thing. You can see that deltoid was basically still just a sphere from when I first cobbled this character together. But read the stories and gaming sections. I want to hear your opinion of those too. I never really set up with the flavor text as such, but I did have a poster and flyers about it at a couple of gaming cons. That's it. Since we never had any printed stuff until this booklet you have, it wasn't really something we could... Oh wow, I didn't realize that was the first version of it. Okay, so now what this really needs is love, sweet love. It's like an empty part of the cape under there. I might scratch in some texture here. Actually, what that stuff really needs to just fit with get affixed to the body. So Cave doesn't get upset at me. Remove any gaps that I can get rid of. Save. join. Actually, the move tool that way they absolutely intersect with one another. Stuff no one will ever see. Okay. Sweet. So I think this is done. Unless I put any kind of ornamentation on the chest piece. For purposes of the illustration, I will probably add an extra book back here. This wouldn't be part of the mini, but the illustration would have that as yeah, I could even, for the illustration, I can tilt all the books back a little bit, but I think I want to have it more aggressive. It's so funny how little of the cape is showing, that the cape is mostly there for the 3D model. Cape doesn't have that kind of sprigs and little bits coming out of it the way I kind of hoped, but I think it looks okay. What are we doing? Right, I'm going to take book 7 and hide it for now. Let's think about adding something interesting to this armor. Okay, I gotta change this so it's front-facing vertex only. I'm gonna deselect everything and do that again. So we will extrude that. Try to see if these plates work. I don't know. I'm not sold on that. No, I don't think so. I thought about putting another emblem in the middle of his chest, like one more skull, but that actually was too much. I didn't think there could be too many skulls, but apparently there is an upper limit. Think about this some more. Okay, I like the cape. You know, the axe could use a little bit more love. I think like the armor plates, like on the shoulders, those could probably use some sort of decoration as well. So whatever I figure out for the chest, I mean, I could just put in I could draw in a pattern. The bottom of the cape is too flat. I see what you're saying, like that feels too flat. Bottom edge, yeah, I can see that. Certainly from certain angles. Well, but still, it's got a kind of slight angle to it, but it could use more, for sure. I'm not sold on it. I'd like it to have a swoop, but I know this is like a super heavy fabric, and it shouldn't. It should have weight. The heavier it looks, the stronger he looks. I don't know how even those every time I started sculpting the strands, they got wispier and wispier. I really like the chunkiness of the top ones. So we end up having two different thicknesses. That's fine. I did cook up a bump map for chainmail, which worked out really well. It just doesn't work for this design. I think I showed it before. Well, that's not it. Fall off. Catmull ROM, nice and low. Alpha pattern. Oh, symmetry's on it, screwing it up. Oh, let me get backwards. So increase the power, increase the bump. Yeah, I kind of like it, but also it's just too decorative. I don't like. I'd rather it to be something chunky. I feel like it has to be that kind of sturdy brutalist design. Nah. Put the chainmail on the rib sections. I tried that. I didn't like it. That's why I softened the rib sections. So it kind of it's just too much. I think between that and the textures of the cape and the chainmail together just kind of fight each other so badly. Did you engrave a player's handbook and DMG into this book? No, not yet. But I definitely want to put weird stuff like that in there. Dice patterns and things like that, like the D20 shape. Like, I think I have a stamp of the D20. No, I got the chainmail, the cards. I got this pattern, which I used for... Invert that. Oh, it's too pronounced. Sorry. Or I have to increase the resolution. Oh no, it's the symmetry again that was doing it. It was putting it on there twice. There was this pattern I created for the Metadomain Cleric of dice and feathers and wings and flame and all this stuff. But at some point that kind of looks like a superhero costume. I think it has to look like metal plates. Marvel's the Shocker. Like a padded armor. I might have to just sketch that out, so figure it out. And the next thing I'm going to do is, for the legs here, if I've got them organized properly, I'm going to modify this so the character's absolutely planting their foot on on the ground. So I'll have to adjust the figure, maybe slide everything down a little bit. Let me adjust the... just so when it prints, it doesn't fall over. So, but that's too soon. I'm not going to muck around with that just yet, because I'd rather get the gesture right for the illustration. I have no idea what color hair. Can't ever be green, because you can't have that, because it'll look like the Joker. I was concerned it was looking a little bit like was it Emperor Hulk or something like that? So a skull. I'm gonna think on this armor. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was I think that was a line I wrote in there, that grognard, and it was like a it was something along the line. What was it? I'm not sure if it'll stay in there because it's just too dumb, but most grognards are white, but they can be any designation, much to their consternation or something like that. I might leave all that stuff on the cutting room floor. This isn't meant to mock grognards in general. It's meant to. I come not to bury Caesar, but to praise him. I think that most people who call themselves grognards generally have a sense of humor about their technical know-how, about their eyeglass pushing, allow me to correct you kind of approach to the games, and so I don't want to mock. That's one of the reasons why I want to make sure the character was in some ways imposing and not just a joke. It would have been real easy to make it a joke character, but they're hardly characters. They're hardly in charge of anything. So to poke fun at them really isn't, what is it? The idea is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. How are we doing on time? 6:30. We're doing great. So the top book, not the one that's hidden right there. Let me change this. Let me deselect everything. Can I deselect anything? I need to add a pattern to the platform, but that's neither here nor there. So I think that's roughly the piece. I have to weld that arm that's up to the deltoid on that side. I don't think that's been done yet. I can see that's a separate element there. I still feel like I want to decorate up that armor plate and these armor plates on the arms. It could just be with runes and things like that. I could just scrape those in. Or I can create a separate texture and then solve that problem forever. Like I create that in black and white in Procreate and then just use that as a stamp to pop those things out and never worry about it again. I do want to put a pattern on the axe. But that book you see at the top there, for folks who are just joining me, that's actually, I sculpted that top book in Shaper 3D, which I find like a pretty handy program to use. I made some improvements since we saw it over in Nomad Sculpt, but the idea is to create a box that can store, actually print a box that'll store the zines that I've made. It would have a hinge. So I need to decorate the front of that as well. I need to decorate that so it will look like a hand-tooled, not only just hand-tooled, but also, you would know the phrase cave. It's that idea that they have some sort of, like, what is it, wet molding, where the leather is soaked and it's glued to objects underneath the leather, and you press it into those objects. So that kind of effect of, maybe trying to make it look weathered and make it look hand done, but that these pieces on the corner would be sort of metallic elements that are put on top. I'm not sure if I need to dig into those to give them kind of character. I could certainly bring those into Nomad Sculpt. I certainly bring it into Nomad Sculpt and carve out little elements, like, again, like it's been beaten up, that it's 1,000 years old. The pages are very dry in that they're all, I made a series of rectangles and merged them together. I hate how a couple of them are just sort of almost the same. Maybe that's just part of the variety of it. But I could see bringing the pages box, isolate. I could see bringing this into Nomad Sculpt and slicing cuts into it, and then bringing it back into this program. But this is called Shaper 3D. I found it very useful. It's very good at measuring objects. This is the size of the zines I make here. Select all. So, using that as my measurement. What are we doing? Select all, sketch. So that's in millimeters, A5 size. And so it will fit inside the box. And so this will definitely be among the first few things I print when I get that printer. I hope that I've managed to measure enough, put enough distance, build enough distance in between these shapes, so that when they print, that it will stay hinged and that they don't expand. I understand there's a couple of different settings of basically how FDM printers will lay the plastic down, whether it tries to run the direct center of the line or air inward or outward, depending on the setting. The idea being that if, let's say it's a 0.5, let's say half a millimeter or a fraction of a millimeter in width, that it's either going to drop it, and I don't know how it determines how that spread will go, but basically it's going to inch over a little bit to lean it in, to give some room. tightening the shape up. Someone did an example of the two kinds of things they 3D printed, and with two different settings, kind of relaxed or tight. And the relaxed one was significantly larger. And there's a middle way. The standard setting is close, fairly close mathematically, but I think when dealing with things like hinges, having those a little bit tighter would probably be a good idea. I mean tighter in that they're more compact, so I could actually manage to wedge that covers on. I'd hate the idea that they're so far off that the covers wouldn't connect. But there's other things I want to do, like try some of this wood PLA and print like the kegger in a way that looks like wood. Maybe the house of the maybe the roof of the house is wood. But Shaper 3D, I really recommend it. They have a free version. If you are a student or educator, you can get their pro version for free. The free version by itself is way hamstrung, so hard to recommend, but definitely worth trying out. I wonder if I need to do anything else for the... Alright, Cave, let's try this. Let's try this. Damn it. We talked about it. You said it. I tried it before. I didn't think it... I thought it didn't work. We'll clone it. We'll turn off the original. We'll smooth this down. Grab the stamp tool. We need to create a seam because there's going to be pieces here. Using the selection mask tool, we're not going to draw through the object. Front facing vertex only. But we do want symmetry on for both sides of this thing. And this might be a very low resolution object. Increasing the juice a little bit here. Inverting it so it looks right. Then we're going to invert the selection. Back to the stamp tool. And my cat is meowing at me. And then we will clear the selection. I think I needed to increase the resolution of the whole thing. But that seam there is going to help protect it. Yeah, it's too low resolution. It's kind of chunking out. But I didn't make it as pronounced as I had my previous one, which I had those individual links were so strong that it was distracting from the cape. I thought trying at lower pressure, but adding this element to it. Get the line tool, let's get the selection mask tool and the line tool. Undo. Go back here. Front-facing vertex only. We'll turn that off. And we'll expand that. Very thick. Oh, other way around. I think you're probably seeing where I'm going with this. Okay. Stamp tool. Where are you? There you are. Making sure it's front-facing vertex only. That way we're not going to poke through the damn thing. It is digging into the shape a little bit, even with that button unselected. So we'll make that a thicker extraction. We'll double it. Ooh, that's too much. Let's split the difference. I'll still have to do something to fix that. Stamp tool. My cat's being a real jerk right now. I should put the seam in here like we had the on the side. Something like that. How are we doing? I'm going to clear that selection. I know I'm looking way off the screen here. Fight the texture does fight the cape, but I think we're okay. Do we have shadows going on? We do. Maybe make the texture smaller. I worry that too small, it's not going to show up at all. I'll show you. Maybe it does work better that way. I feel like that's just going to look like psoriasis or something. I think the key is that seam we did for the other one. We're just building in a place where it can repeat. This isn't Hitchcock's rope. People can see the cut. I'm fine with that. Oh, I did that wrong. The idea is to overlap them just a little bit. That way, when you get the thickness up to 0.6-ish, increase it to 3 radiuses, and then, oops, undo. Taper the ends of each part of the line, and then when you remesh it, generally there'll be a little bit of weirdness where the two segments come together, but it's lessened. Let's try this. Well, the wood always had like the chainmail that was all torn up, and as the Prince Valiant one would be just zigzag shapes, very Robin Hood. I don't know. Gotta think about it. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it. I like that it's done. That's my favorite part about it. I like that it's I'm a big fan of things being just not unfinished. All right, I'm going to think on that some more. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go, let's see if we can raid somebody. Let's see if we still have a few people here on Twitch. Let's do that. If you're watching on YouTube or catching the replay later on, thank you so much for being here. Cave, if you're around, between the brain and the skull in the crack. that hollow there? Yeah, there's absolutely a hollow in there. I felt like without the hollow, if it was just solid, that it would look weird. Like it needs to feel like a broken skull that has a hollow in it. And if someone has to if there's going to be a lattice in there or support in there, that could be tendrils or brains or who knows what. Or someone can go in there with a Q-tip or a toothpick if they want to pick stuff out of there. Go play, pick up sticks with brains. But when I initially had it in there as just kind of a groove, and it didn't feel right. It felt like it was just a cut in something and not the hollow of a skull. So yeah, I recognize it's pretty dumb. But all right, I think we finished this. Any final tweaks I make will be offline, and Thursday stream we're going to start something new. But this was 7 episodes. Cave, I'm pretty sure I have your contact in here. As I mentioned before, I switched. How do I not have? I must have you in here. I don't know if I have your phone number. How did we talk? We absolutely had a communication. We Zoomed before, didn't we? All right. Well, I'll contact you through the through Discord. We'll figure that out. All right, everybody. Where do we go? Who can we pester ever so briefly before I log off for the evening? But thank you all for being here. Again, if you want to check out my work, it's at steveconley.com. You can find the middleagecomic.com. And check out Prayer's Handbook. 261 people are queued up for when the campaign launches next week. And my cat is yelling at me, so this is the perfect timing. Oh, Grimtooth. Well, let's go to Goodman Games. They're doing something. Wow, there's a lot of people online right now. If I picked the wrong day for streaming? Is this must-see TV and I'm going up against friends? Channel. All right, Cave. Look for a note from me in Discord. All right, everybody. Have a great night. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for being here.